You were never cut out for this role, my manager said, her tone dripping with disdain as she leaned back in her designer chair. She spoke as if she had rehearsed the line, savoring the delivery. The office lights glinted off the glass walls behind her, casting her in a halo of authority she hadn't truly earned. Across the table, I folded my hands in my lap, forcing myself to remain composed. My heart pounded, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of seeing it. She tilted her head, smirking. You've been useful, Amanda, but the Westbridge Complex project needs someone with actual vision. Someone like me. I raised an eyebrow. The same project where my redesign saved us nearly $400,000 in construction costs? Her smirk deepened. Our redesign, Amanda. Don't make this difficult. I presented it to the board. That's what leadership is. Knowing how to communicate ideas. Your job is to support me, not compete with me. She sighed theatrically, as if I were a child who refused to understand her rules. I nodded slowly, letting a strange calm wash over me. I understand perfectly. I'll be gone on Friday. But Monday... I allowed the pause to linger, watching her eyes narrow. Monday is going to be fun. She rolled her eyes and waved a dismissive hand. Always with the cryptic comments. This is exactly why you'll never move up. You don't belong here, Amanda. Some people just aren't leadership material. Her words stung, not because I believed them, but because they echoed years of her quiet sabotage. Still, I stood, smoothed my blazer, and walked out of her office without another word. Through the glass walls, I caught glimpses of my colleagues. Some avoided my eyes. Others looked at me with pity. They had seen the way my manager, Victoria Hayes, the firm's youngest and most celebrated director, used me. They had watched her climb the ranks by harvesting my ideas, polishing them with a few words, and presenting them as her own. 8 years I'd given this company. 8 years of late nights, weekends sacrificed, and designs that had won awards under her name. I'd always told myself it was temporary, that eventually the truth would shine through. But the truth didn't matter in an office where charisma outweighed substance. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed. A message from Eric, one of the senior engineers I trusted. How did it go? I typed back quickly. As expected, she's pushing me out. His reply came fast. That's insane. After everything you did for the coastal housing project? Her project, I corrected with bitter humor. At least that's what the press release had said. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small black external hard drive. It looked so ordinary, yet it contained months of careful preparation. Every design draft I'd created, every email chain, every timestamp that proved my authorship. Insurance I'd begun collecting when Victoria's thefts shifted from forgetting my contributions to actively erasing my name from presentations. I'd played along for too long, hoping my work would speak for itself. But when she requested access to my entire portfolio for archival purposes last month, I knew what she was doing. She was preparing to replace me entirely, rewriting history so she could stand on the foundation of my career. And now she thought she'd succeeded. A laugh escaped my lips, quiet enough that no one noticed. She had no idea what was waiting for her. My gaze drifted to the wall of framed project photos in the main hallway. The Greenfield Community Center, the Riverside Towers, the award-winning coastal housing project. Every one of them bore Victoria's name on the plaques. Every one of them was mine in spirit and in design. Seeing them now, I felt both a pang of regret and a spark of determination. I wasn't naive anymore. This wasn't just about pride or recognition. It was about survival, reputation, and justice. As I packed my things into a small box, just the essentials, the rest could wait. I repeated my words silently. Friday I'll leave. But Monday? Monday will be fun. Because Monday, Victoria would discover that building her empire on stolen work came with a price. Friday came quicker than I expected. The office felt colder that morning, though maybe that was just me, knowing it would be my last official day at Reynolds and Clark. When I arrived, my desk had already been stripped down to the bare minimum. HR had sent an email reminding me to transition my files by noon. It was as if I were being erased in real time, reduced to a name on a separation form. I tried not to let it sting, but after 8 years, it did. 8 years of building a career brick by brick. 8 years of pouring myself into designs that balanced creativity with practicality. And 8 years of watching Victoria Hayes, my manager, present my work as if it were born from her own brilliance. People always wondered how she rose so quickly, how she became one of the youngest directors in the firm's history. I used to wonder too. Now I knew. She hadn't built her career. She'd borrowed mine. As I began packing the last of my things into a box, Eric stopped by. He leaned against the edge of my desk, his voice low. "So it's really happening." I nodded. She made sure of it. "You know," he said carefully, "people talk. We all know you carried the coastal housing project. Without you, it wouldn't have met budget, let alone won that award." "That's not what the press release said," I replied. Bitterness crept into my tone before I could stop it. He studied me for a moment. "You're too calm. You're planning something." I smiled faintly but said nothing. I didn't owe him an explanation. On my lunch break, I walked past the company's wall of fame, the glossy photos of our signature projects. My heart twisted as I scanned them. The Greenfield Center, the Riverside Towers, the Coastal Housing Project. All of them bore Victoria's name as the lead. Each plaque was a reminder of my silence. For years, I'd told myself to endure it. That recognition wasn't everything, that the work itself mattered. But recognition did matter. Without it, you became invisible, replaceable, expendable. Just like me now. I returned to my desk and slipped the small external hard drive into my bag. Inside, it lived years of careful documentation. Drafts, sketches, design files, email chains with metadata that proved authorship. I hadn't collected it out of spite, but out of survival. Something inside me had whispered months ago. "One day you'll need this." Friday afternoon blurred by. HR handed me a separation packet that promised 2 months of severance in exchange for my silence. Victoria didn't even come by to say goodbye. She was probably in a conference room rehearsing her next big presentation, the one she'd undoubtedly give on Monday, now that I was out of the way. When 5 o'clock came, I carried my box to the elevator. Some colleagues offered polite goodbyes, others avoided eye contact. Only Jenna, the receptionist, gave me a hug. She whispered, "We all know the truth, Amanda. Don't let her win." Her words stayed with me as I left the building. At home that evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at my kitchen table, staring at the contents of my box. Family photos, a mug my daughter had given me, a desk plant already drooping from neglect. 8 years condensed into a cardboard container. I opened my laptop and connected the hard drive. On the screen, folders neatly labeled Greenfield, Riverside, Coastal Housing, Westbridge Complex. Each one filled with original files, sketches, timestamps, proof of my work. I scrolled through the Westbridge folder in particular. The design that saved $400,000 in construction costs was still there in its raw form, complete with calculations, revisions, and notes written in my hand. Victoria could dress it up and present it to the board, but she couldn't erase the fact that I had created it. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of control. I wasn't naive enough to think revenge was simple. Companies like Reynolds and Clark protected their stars. People like Victoria built armor out of charm, connections, and carefully cultivated narratives. Going against her would be like standing in a storm with nothing but an umbrella. But sometimes all it took was one leak in the armor, one truth she couldn't spin. And I had it. Later that night, Eric texted me again. "Are you okay?" I stared at the message, considering how to respond. I typed back, "I will be. Monday will be interesting." There it was again, the phrase I'd said to Victoria. Monday. I didn't know if Eric would understand it, but I did. Monday wasn't about revenge for the sake of revenge. It was about finally pulling back the curtain, about refusing to let someone else write the ending to my story. I closed my laptop and finished my wine. Friday was over. Monday was coming. And Victoria had no idea what was waiting for her. The weekend passed in a haze of restless thoughts. I tried to distract myself with errands, with calls to my daughter, with long walks around the neighborhood. But no matter what I did, my mind returned to the same point. Monday. I didn't know exactly how it would unfold, but I knew this much. Victoria had pushed me out because she was afraid I'd discover what she had done. By Sunday evening, the pieces started to fall into place. I was sorting through my emails, preparing my documentation, when I noticed something strange. A forwarded message in my archive. One I didn't remember sending. It was addressed to a contact at Whitaker Design, one of our firm's biggest competitors. Attached was a draft sketch for the Westbridge complex. The problem was I hadn't sent it. My stomach sank as I scrolled further. 3 more emails, all apparently from my account, forwarding project materials to external addresses. The dates matched the week I'd been on vacation. I froze. Victoria hadn't just been stealing my work. She'd been planting evidence, too. That night, I barely slept. I kept replaying conversations in my mind. Her smug comments, the way she dismissed me in front of others, her insistence that some people just aren't leadership material. It wasn't just arrogance. It was strategy. She was laying the groundwork to paint me as incompetent, even disloyal. And if those emails ever surfaced, people might actually believe her. By the time Monday morning came, I was running on coffee and adrenaline. I didn't have to go into the office anymore, but I wanted to see what Victoria had planned. Something told me this wasn't going to be just another staff meeting. At 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Jenna, the receptionist. Big announcement at 10. Harold is here. Everyone's whispering. Harold Reynolds, the founder himself. He hadn't been in the office in weeks. My pulse quickened. Whatever this was, it was important. I threw on a blazer and grabbed my bag, the hard drive tucked securely inside. By 9:45, I was in the lobby, blending into the small crowd of employees trickling toward the conference room. No one seemed surprised to see me. Maybe they assumed I had been invited. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Victoria stood near the front, polished as ever in her navy suit, radiating confidence. She didn't even glance in my direction. That alone told me she was nervous. Pretending I wasn't there was easier than acknowledging me. Harold cleared his throat. Thank you all for joining us on short notice. Today marks a pivotal moment for Reynolds and Clark. We are proud to announce a strategic collaboration with Whitaker Design on the Westbridge complex. The room erupted in polite applause. My chest tightened. Whitaker, the very competitor my stolen emails had been sent to. Victoria stepped forward, smiling graciously. This partnership is the result of months of effort, and I am honored to have led the design vision that made it possible. The Westbridge complex will set a new standard for sustainable urban development. She clicked a remote, and my sketches filled the projector screen. My renderings, my calculations, my sleepless nights, paraded as her own. I felt my jaw clench. The presentation went on for 20 minutes, a polished performance of stolen brilliance. Victoria spoke about her innovations, about her cost-saving designs, about her vision for the city. When it ended, Harold turned to the room. Effective immediately, Victoria Hayes will serve as lead director for the Westbridge project. Her leadership has positioned this firm as a leader in sustainable design. Applause again. But this time, I noticed something different. Not everyone was clapping enthusiastically. A few glanced at me, uncertainty in their eyes. After the meeting, I slipped into the hallway, my mind racing. It all fit together now. The stolen files, the planted emails, the accelerated timeline of my departure. It was all to clear the way for this announcement. Victoria had set me up as the fall guy. If anyone ever questioned the designs, she could point to those fake emails and claim I had leaked them to Whitaker. Meanwhile, she would stand at the front of the room, basking in applause. As I left the building, Eric caught up to me. Amanda, wait. He lowered his voice. You need to be careful. After you left Friday, Victoria told people you'd been acting unstable. She even suggested you'd tried to claim credit for her work. My chest tightened. Of course she did. She's covering her tracks, he said. And now with this Whitaker deal, she looks untouchable. Untouchable, I repeated softly. For now, maybe. Because what Victoria didn't know was that I still had the originals, the raw files with timestamps that predated her so-called vision. And I wasn't about to let them gather dust. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table again, the hard drive glowing faintly beside my laptop. I opened the Westbridge folder and scrolled through every draft, every calculation, every annotated sketch. For the first time in months, I felt something close to clarity. Victoria had built a trap for me, but she hadn't realized I'd built one for her too. By noon on Monday, I'd stopped shaking. Not because I felt brave, but because fear eventually burns itself out and leaves something harder behind. I called a lawyer a former client had recommended, employment and IP, and by 1:30 p.m. I was in her small conference room, clutching my hard drive like it might disappear if I blinked. She introduced herself. Maya Patel, direct voice, no fluff. I gave her the short version. 8 years of work, a manager who took credit, suspicious leaks to a competitor while I was on vacation, and this morning's announcement with my designs on the screen under her name. Maya listened without interrupting. When I finished, she steepled her fingers. 2 tracks, she said. Authorship and ownership aren't the same. The firm may own the work product, but authorship and misconduct matter. We don't blast the press. We put the company on notice, request a litigation hold, and force an internal forensic audit. If they stonewall, we escalate. Meanwhile, we warn the partner firm that authorship is in dispute. No specifics, no files. Just enough to make them pause. I exhaled. So I'm not crazy. You're precise, she corrected. That's better. We drafted 2 messages. The first to Harold Reynolds and the firm's general counsel, subject line, litigation hold and authorship dispute, Westbridge. It included a short factual summary. Original CAD files with timestamps predating any submission to Whitaker. Contemporaneous emails documenting my design process, and evidence that emails were sent from my account to external domains while I was out of state. I didn't attach files, just an index and screenshots of file properties with visible dates. We requested a forensic review of server access logs, email rules, and workstation logins for the dates I was in Vancouver, plus a preservation order on all Westbridge-related content. The second message went to Whitaker's legal inbox, CCing Maya, notice of disputed design authorship, Westbridge. 1 paragraph, clinical and calm. Authorship was under internal investigation at Reynolds. I requested they refrain from public representations until it was resolved. No accusations, no drama. I hit send at 2:07 p.m. At 2:22 p.m., Harold replied, "Please come in at 4 p.m. General counsel will join. Bring your documentation." The speed told me they were worried. Good. I texted my daughter that I might be late for dinner. "You've got this," she wrote back. "Evidence beats volume." At 3:58, I stepped out of the elevator with my bag over my shoulder, and that peculiar sensation of walking into a building you no longer belong to. Jenna gave me a small nod from reception. "Conference room B," she mouthed. Harold was already seated, tie loosened, the firm's general counsel, Linda Cho, beside him with a legal pad. Victoria wasn't there. Relief washed over me. "Thank you for coming, Amanda," Harold said, voice formal. I connected my laptop and opened a folder labeled Westbridge Origin. "I won't share confidential content beyond what's necessary," I began, keeping my tone even. "You asked for proof. Here is the file tree, versioned with timestamps. This drawing set, V03 through V11, predates any calendar entry referring to Whitaker. The cost-saving calculations are in these spreadsheets with formula history. And here," I clicked into properties, "the creation dates, author fields, and save paths." Linda leaned forward. "We'll have IT verify the metadata against server logs." I nodded and switched windows. Now, the forwarded emails. I brought up my mail archive. 3 outbound messages to external domains while I was on vacation. I didn't send them. There was also a filter created that week forwarding anything with Westbridge in the subject to an external alias. IT can confirm rule creation, and the IP addresses used Harold rubbed his temple. Why didn't you bring this to us sooner? Because every time I tried to raise credit issues, they were reframed as performance problems, I said, looking at him, not away. And because I needed more than my word. Linda picked up the phone and dialed an internal extension. I'm placing a litigation hold on all Westbridge content. Pull workstation logs for Amanda Carter and Victoria Hayes for June 15th through June 21st. I want email audit logs, rule changes, and any remote sessions. She hung up, then turned back to me. Anything else? I opened a separate folder. Attribution evidence. Emails from earlier projects, Greenfield, Riverside, where Victoria explicitly asked for my drafts and costing magic, giving me explicit credit in writing before later speeches erased it. This isn't about ownership, I said quietly. It's about authorship and a pattern. We were interrupted by a knock. Victoria stepped in, poised, smile fixed. I heard there was a meeting regarding Westbridge, she said, like a line she'd rehearsed. Her eyes flicked to my laptop. I assume we're being fair to all parties? Linda was crisp. We'll speak with you separately, Victoria. Victoria's smile tightened. She didn't move. Well, since I'm here, separately, Linda repeated, standing. The room chilled. Victoria hesitated, then left, heels clicking in a staccato that sounded angrier than she meant. A text flashed on my phone from Jenna. FYI. Victoria asked it 10 minutes ago if they could clean old caches from project drives. They said no. Linda's eyes met mine. Please forward that screenshot to me. I did. For the first time, Harold's expression shifted from weary to alert. We need to contain this. We broke for 30 minutes while IT pulled preliminary logs. I waited in reception, palms pressed to my coffee cup for warmth I couldn't feel. Eric passed by and slowed, his voice barely above a whisper. Whatever you did, keep going. The tone in there changed. At 5:12, Linda called me back. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Preliminaries show your mailbox rule was created from a desktop registered to Victoria's user profile during your vacation. There were 2 remote sessions into your workstation from her credentials. We're still validating, but it's not good for her. Harold swallowed. We'll need to brief Whitaker and the city. I closed my laptop gently. You also need to make sure the narrative is accurate before anyone else writes it for you. Linda nodded. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., joint review with Whitaker and our board representatives. Bring your index and be prepared to walk through your process. She paused. Thank you for documenting. As I left the building, the sky over the river was the color of steel. I thought of what I'd told Victoria. I'll be gone on Friday, but Monday will be fun. Fun wasn't the word. Necessary was. Truth was. And for the first time in a long time, Monday had finally bent toward both. My phone buzzed again. An email from Whitaker's legal. Received. We will suspend external communications regarding Westbridge pending clarification. I exhaled, a long, shaking breath that tasted like relief. Chain of custody. That's what Maya had called it. For once, the chain led somewhere solid. Tuesday at 9:58 a.m., I was back in conference room B. The table was fuller this time. Harold and Linda, 2 board members I'd only seen at holiday parties, Whitaker's counsel with their project lead, a city planner from Westbridge, our IT director, and a quiet man introduced as an external forensic consultant. Victoria arrived last with a polite, brittle smile and a PR manager in tow. Linda set the tone. Ground rules. We're establishing authorship and chain of custody. No one will disclose confidential materials beyond what's necessary. We'll keep this factual. I plugged in my laptop and opened the same index I'd shown the day before. I'm not handing over my entire archive, I said. but I'll walk you through the version history, creation dates, and the process notes tied to each milestone. Whitaker's counsel nodded. That's sufficient for our purposes. I started at the beginning. Early massing studies, then the cost models that cut steel and glazing spend without compromising performance. Then the phasing diagrams for flood season operations. I clicked through properties windows and displayed the formula history in the spreadsheets. The timestamps were dull, almost boring, which is what made them powerful. Boring proof is the hardest to argue with. The city planner leaned forward. Your flood egress assumptions, were those based on the 50-year or 100-year projections? 100-year, I answered, opening the note attached to V07. Plus a 10% buffer because the seawall retrofit is still unfunded. The reversible ground floor partitions are detailed here. I zoomed to the annotation. Whitaker's project lead asked about loading on the green roof spans. I brought up my calc sheet and read the live values. No theater, just numbers. When their questions tapered off, Linda turned to IT. Preliminary findings? Our IT director kept to bullet points. Mailbox rule forwarding any email with Westbridge in subject line was created from a workstation registered to Victoria Hayes on June 17th at 9:41 p.m. 2 remote sessions into Ms. Carter's machine were initiated that week using Ms. Hayes' credentials. There were file accesses on Amanda's shared drive outside her typical hours, originating from Victoria's profile. We are still validating whether a USB device was mounted during that window. The external consultant added, We've imaged the relevant systems and preserved logs. Nothing is being altered during this review. Eyes shifted to Victoria. She folded her hands. We have always operated collaboratively. Amanda contributed early thinking. I refined and presented as any director would. The metadata is being misinterpreted. We frequently assist each other when people are out. And it's inappropriate to suggest Linda raised a palm. No one is characterizing intent. We are characterizing activity. Victoria's PR manager tried to pivot. Perhaps we should focus on forward-looking solutions. This is an internal miscommunication. The city planner cut in, voice even. It can't be a miscommunication if the person who designed it can explain load paths and phasing and the person who claims credit cannot. The commission will not proceed without clear attribution and a corrected record. Silence followed. The kind that lands like a weight. Harold cleared his throat. Amanda, if the firm recognizes you as author of the Westbridge design set, would you agree to resume as design lead under Linda's oversight while we complete this review? Interim status. We will also correct past attributions where documentation supports it. I didn't rush. 3 conditions. Written retraction of my termination and removal of alleged performance issues from my file. A public project statement acknowledging my authorship and the internal review. And new attribution protocols. Version control, file sign-offs, and named contributors on all external materials. Linda nodded before Harold could answer. We can implement an attribution policy immediately. Draft language will go to the board today. Whitaker's counsel spoke next. If authorship is corrected and the designer who can answer our technical questions leads, Whitaker will remain on the collaboration. Otherwise, we will withdraw. Victoria's jaw tightened. We're making a spectacle out of procedure. You're damaging the firm. No, I said quietly. This protects the work, and the people who do it. The meeting adjourned without theatrics. Victoria was placed on administrative leave pending the forensic report. PR prepared a brief statement. The firm was correcting a project attribution and implementing stronger authorship controls. The city accepted the interim arrangement. Whitaker suspended public announcements until the review concluded. The rest didn't resolve in a day. It took 2 weeks of log pulls, interviews, and more questions about arcane spreadsheet cells than anyone should endure. When the report landed, it was clinical. Rule creation and remote sessions traced to Victoria's credentials, file access inconsistent with my travel records, and an established pattern of authorship misrepresentation across prior projects. The board met that afternoon. By evening, Victoria resigned. The memo cited policy violations without detail. The industry drew its own conclusions. Harold asked to see me the next morning. He didn't try to smooth it over. "We failed you," he said. "I failed you. I looked at outcomes and ignored process. If you'll stay, we want you to lead Westbridge and help us build the attribution system you described, title and compensation to match." I thought of 8 years of swallowing my name, of Friday's cardboard box, of Jenna's whispered, "Don't let her win." I thought of my daughter telling me evidence beats volume. "I'll stay," I said, "on the terms we agreed. No quiet fix. We do this in the open." "We will," he said. The statement went out that afternoon. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't name names. It corrected the record and set new rules. Contributors listed on every deck, file authorship locked by system, sign-offs that travel with the work. The wall of fame began to change, one plaque at a time. It felt small and enormous at once. A month later, I presented the refined Westbridge set to the City Commission. I didn't think about revenge. I thought about load paths, evacuation timing, maintenance access, cost per square meter, the things that actually hold a project up. On the way out, the city planner shook my hand. "Your process is clear," she said. "That's what lasts." That night, my daughter asked the question she always does after big days. "Worth it?" "Yes," I said. Not because it hurt her, because it protected the work, and the people who'll come after me. "You were never cut out for this role," Victoria had said. She was right about one thing. I wasn't cut out to play someone else's role. I was built to do the work, and to make sure the credit follows the truth. Monday wasn't fun. It was accountability, and that was more than enough.